We're heading first to Pakistan, which has witnessed two radical shifts in the political scene in recent weeks. One was the exit of a prime minister, once seen as a strongman of Pakistan politics. The other was the rise of radical elements as politicians. And now a third major development is unfolding. Former President and Army Chief General Pervez Musharraf is cozying up to Mumbai attack mastermind Hafiz Saeed as he prepares ground for his return from exile. What explains this newfound love? Here's a report.
A shift in Pakistan's politics happened this year. Nawaz Sharif lost his throne. He was forced to step down as the Prime Minister of Pakistan after he was found guilty in the Panama Papers case. Almost 4 months later, there was another shift in Pakistan's mainstream politics. Mumbai terror mastermind Hafiz Saeed was released from house arrest. Just a few days after his release, Hafiz Saeed would make his intentions clear. Through his political party, the Muslim League, Saeed is eyeing a place in mainstream politics. And his ambitions have now received a boost from a former president. So why is Pervez Musharraf cozying up to the mastermind of the Mumbai terror attacks? After the exit of Nawaz Sharif, General Musharraf is looking to exploit the vacuum in Pakistan's politics. The Pakistan People's Party and the Pakistan Muslim League show little signs of a return. And Imran Khan's Tehreek-e-Insaf cannot go all the way on its own. One thing is for sure, any alliance between General Musharraf and Hafiz Saeed will have the backing of the ISI and the military. Pakistan's army, who have been caught on camera backing hardliners, is supporting activities of right-wing parties like Tehreek-e-Labbaik and Muslim League. As part of its plan to mainstream radical elements, the army's tacit support for Saeed's new and dangerous initiatives is expected to continue. Bureau Report, WION.
Joining us this evening from Islamabad, WION's Pakistan Bureau Chief Taha Siddiqui. We have T.C. Ragan, former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan, with us from New Delhi. Ahmed Shaheen, investigative journalist also from Islamabad, and Michael Kugelman, Senior Associate for South Asia Program at the Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington. Good evening to all of you. Amir, let me come to you first. Musharraf held the highest constitutional office in Pakistan. He headed the army. For him to be professing support to a terror outfit and saying that he supports them in the quote-unquote suppression of the Indian army, the army of a neighboring country, is this the clearest admission yet on record that Pakistan is a state sponsor of terror?
Highest constitutional position, but he was a usurper. He came to power by abrogating the
Irrespective, he held the office.
So I wouldn't say it was the highest constitutional position, because him being there was unconstitutional, as much as him meddling with politics and playing around with the terrorists, creating these new political parties based on terrorist organizations. All of that is not constitutional. And like I always say, it does not represent the political setup of Pakistan. But President Pervez Musharraf, who was a dictator, is a former general, he's got more than a dozen political parties in his own little array of, political circus, as I might be correct in saying that. And I mean, right now, the political party that he used last time when he was the dictator to win and get into elections had no public base. And these political parties do not have public base either. So he does not represent the political setup of Pakistan. He was a military dictator.
He represented the state of Pakistan for almost a decade. He headed the army of Pakistan. He headed, whether he took it constitutionally or otherwise, the highest constitutional office, I repeat, of Pakistan. For a man like this, who's also looking at a comeback, to be saying that he supports Hafiz Saeed, that he supports what he does in Kashmir, my question again, Emmer, is this the clearest admission yet that Pakistan sponsors, the state of Pakistan sponsors terrorism against India?
General Musharraf is not the state of Pakistan. He did usurp the power and get into decision-making. The military is not the state of Pakistan. The military, unfortunately, does have a lot of influence on the foreign policy and within an internal political weather and climate of Pakistan. But that does not represent Pakistan. Unfortunately, when democratic institutions are weakened and the military does come into power, that's when it does. Today's Pakistan is not represented by General Musharraf. Today's Pakistan should not allow Hafiz Saeed and other terrorists to contest elections. And I hope today's Pakistan would not do that.
Well, today's Pakistan is also represented by those who let Hafiz Saeed walk free, but you've said it yourself, Emmer. Taha Siddiqui, why is he saying what he's saying now, and how do people in Pakistan view these statements coming from a man who's been in exile for many years now, who faces serious charges, including treason, in Pakistan?
Well, to begin with, this has a bit of two folds of, aspects to it. One is the Jamaat-ud-Dawa itself and the evolution that we've seen, what's happening with it in the recent times. It's a reincarnation of Lashkar-e-Taiba. It's now Jamaat-ud-Dawa. And now it also has a political wing of Milli Muslim League, which was recently introduced. And there are reports that suggest that the military establishment wants to de-radicalize these groups and bring them into the parliament or the political system, but also at the same time dent perhaps the PMLN, the ruling party's vote in Punjab. So that's why Jamaat-ud-Dawa is coming forward. Now, definitely because of that very fact that Jamaat-ud-Dawa might have that backing of the military establishment in the country, Musharraf is sort of banking on that aspect also, because he wants to come back to the country. He has political ambitions. He's had political ambitions ever since he retired from his presidency, and he's been trying to make a comeback. And so he's signaling to those groups and those political sort of setups, or even religious setups in the country. Just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, he tried to make another coalition of around about 23 parties, which fell apart in a few days. So he's trying to make a comeback up ahead of the elections. It's interesting time in Pakistan because of all of these elections. We're seeing that there is a clear establishment versus the ruling party, the PMLN, right now, kind of competition ongoing, and those camps are clearly being divided as we see as we run up to the elections.
T.C. Raghavan, this is the same man who declared a unilateral ceasefire along the line of control back in 2003. For the next 4 years, back-channel talks were on in an effort to strike peace between India and Pakistan. This was under the leadership of Pervez Musharraf from the Pakistani side. Did New Delhi misread this man?
No, I don't believe New Delhi misread the man, but you're talking about events which are now a decade in the past. The situation has changed, people change a great deal. And Musharraf clearly has changed because he's unable to reconcile himself to a retired life, to a life in retirement. And as your other guest said, Pakistan now is entering an election season. It is open season for all kinds of people to throw their hats in the ring, and he too has thrown his hat in the ring, and he's trying various things. He's trying with the MQM, he's trying with an assortment of various parties which exist only on paper, and finally he's trying with the Jamaat-ud-Dawa because he wants to appear to be all things to all men. But the fundamental issue over here is that he is unable to reconcile himself to a life in retirement. And I doubt very much these outlandish statements which he's coming out with are going to generate a great deal of traction in Pakistan.
Michael Kugelman, how does this endorsement from a former president of a designated global terrorist reflect on Pakistan? What is Pervez Musharraf's locus standi in affairs related to Pakistan today?
Well, I think he really is somewhat of an irrelevant figure. I think that he simply does not have the significance and the clout that he used to. Clearly, though, there is some nostalgia in Pakistan for his rule. I mean, there are pockets of folks in Pakistan that look fondly on how things were when he was in power, particularly relative to how things are now, where there's tremendous criticism toward the civilians, and the PMLN government now, and also the Pakistan People's Party government before it. So there certainly are some notable constituencies that look back fondly on Musharraf's rule, which did feature things like some degree of economic liberalization, media liberalization, and I imagine that Musharraf may want to try to capitalize on that. But, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, as was said before, this is not the first time he's trying to mount a comeback. I remember 5 years ago having similar types of conversations when he was planning to come to Pakistan and build a new movement. But, you know, he said some very strange things, quite frankly, and it sort of reminds me of another politician in the region, very different, but nonetheless, Hamid Karzai in Afghanistan, who's no longer in power, still wants to remain influential, and has said some very strange things, perhaps to appeal to certain constituencies. In Karzai's case, he was talking about how the U.S. and ISIS have worked together. You know, Musharraf now talking about his tremendous respect and support for Hafiz Saeed. It clearly is meant to appeal to a certain constituency, but I do not think that Musharraf retains the level of influence that he used to. There are a lot of legal barriers as well. If he were to try to come to Pakistan, theoretically, he could be arrested. So I don't think we should overstate the significance of these developments involving Musharraf and his ambitions to return to power.
In fact, interesting that you bring that up. I'm going to request you all to stay with us. In Pakistan, I can tell our viewers, Pervez Musharraf, according to reports, is remembered as the army chief who threw out his prime minister. He's accused of treason and a lot else, and he hopes now that the army will help him return to that country. Here's what awaits General Pervez Musharraf in his country.
9 years after he lost the elections and left Pakistan with the Damocles sword of impeachment hanging over his head, Pervez Musharraf appears itching to return to political life from his exile in Dubai. He seems ready and willing to tie up with just about any political group, even the Lashkar-e-Toiba.
मतलब अभी तक तो कोई बात नहीं हुई है, लेकिन फ्यूचर में अलायंस में अगर वो शामिल होना चाह रहे हैं, by all means, I would welcome them.
But why does Musharraf hope to return? The pundits say Musharraf hopes to capitalize on the current political uncertainty in Islamabad. His enemy Nawaz Sharif has been removed as Prime Minister. Sharif's Muslim League, while still in power, has been seriously weakened. The Pakistan People's Party is in the opposition and not a threat. But his attempts to forge a grand alliance of 23 parties last month fell apart within 24 hours. Some Pakistani analysts have speculated that the army could use him to leverage its relations with the Muhajir community, as Musharraf is a Muhajir. But the dominant Muhajir party in Karachi, the MQM, has already rejected proposals to bring him into the party. There's also reason to believe that the army could reject him. The army may have even less reason to turn to him as he is discredited. He faces treason charges for suspending the constitution in 2007 and imposing an emergency. He is accused of complicity in the assassination of Benazir Bhutto. He also faces charges in the killing of the Baloch nationalist Akbar Bukti. The current army chief, General Qamar Bajwa, who is many years Musharraf's junior, may not relish having to play second fiddle to him when the army is pretty much in charge in Pakistan. With the Muslim League weakened and the opposition People's Party in no position to fight back, the army is pushing ahead with its plan to mainstream the jihadi groups. The September 2018 elections could well see the Lashkar-e-Toiba and other jihadi groups field candidates. Although religious parties have generally fared poorly in elections, it could be different next year if the army goes ahead with sidelining the mainstream parties and ensuring a dominant political space for its allies, the jihadis.
Emir Shaheen, where does Pervez Musharraf, the politician, stand in the scheme of things in Pakistan right now?
Pervez Musharraf is a wanted man in Pakistan. If law does take its legal course, he should never have been even allowed to get out of Pakistan. He is a wanted man. The cases on him, as the report also mentioned, is of murder, is of terrorism, is of abrogating the constitution. These are grave accusations of General Pervez Musharraf, and his advisors are telling him not to come back. This is not the Pakistan where an elected prime minister could be hanged. This is a new Pakistan where the elected prime minister has been sent back home. But there has been protests. So this is a different kind of Pakistan, and General Pervez Musharraf will have to think twice before coming back to Pakistan. And General Musharraf does not have a political clout. Yes, there are circles that may constitute as his supporters, but I don't think General Musharraf would be even able to get one single seat in the parliament. Musharraf right now, without the help of the military establishment, is a non-political issue. He has no political clout or standing whatsoever.
Okay. You certainly aren't voting for him if he comes back. Taha Siddiqui, the man he's hoping to ally with, Hafiz Saeed, has launched a party called the MML, which the Pakistan Election Commission is yet to recognize and officially register. Yet, two individuals, Yaqub Sheikh and Liaquat Ali Khan, contested by-elections in Lahore and Peshawar respectively. Is Hafiz Saeed's political entry then a done deal?
Definitely. I mean, he just recently met with some senior journalists and columnists in Lahore, and he spoke to them. And apparently, from what it came out of that was that he wants to contest the upcoming elections. So, Milli Muslim League, the plan to field its candidates in the upcoming elections, and perhaps, I mean, I don't see a victory as such, but the way, because I covered the NA 120 in Lahore, and the way I saw them organized, the way they were, their operations were streamlined when coming to, even though they were contesting elections for the first time, and at that time as an independent candidate, not as a candidate that that the party has not been registered as yet. But the organization that you see behind them, behind Milli Muslim League, it feels like they're definitely very serious about elections, and what they will do is definitely will dent the vote and eat the vote bank of the PMLN in Punjab, and that's perhaps why they have been introduced to begin with.
Michael Kugelman, this is clearly a brazen attempt to exploit the waning political influence of traditional players in Pakistan ahead of next year's elections. Do you see an alliance between Hafiz Saeed and Pervez Musharraf taking shape in Pakistan?
No, I don't know if it would go that far. I think it's true that the Hafiz Saeed situation here is more one of parties that he supports coming into the political fold, and not Saeed himself. I don't think that he's going to take any type of overt role. It would be hard for him to do that for logistical purposes. But I think that what we're really going to be looking at here are the likes of the Milli Muslim League getting out there, providing support to independent candidates so that they can, essentially, these independents can get out there and run on the nasty views of the MML. But the notion of some type of alliance between Musharraf and Hafiz Saeed, that to me comes across as really quite far-fetched, and I think it's a lot of talk and not much else. But the bigger concern here is this mainstreaming of militant groups. The fact of the matter is that Lashkar-e-Taiba has a party in the ring, so to speak. I mean, the MML is it's affiliated with LET, and it's going to be out there running in the national elections, which is really, if you think about it, quite extraordinary and quite scary, because what does that do at the end of the day?
Right.
It gives credibility to the types of hardline ideological views that are propagated by the likes of Lashkar-e-Taiba.
That's exactly what seems to be happening here. T.C. Raghavan, it seems far-fetched according to most people on this panel, and yet with Pakistan, you really don't know which way things are going. What would this alliance, if it came into being, mean for India?
Well, the alliance, and it's a very big if, as your other guests have said, if it came into being, the first question is that apart from the alliance itself, how big a presence would it have in the new parliament? To my mind, neither Hafiz Saeed nor Pervez Musharraf can ever command a significant presence in a political architecture without the support of the army. And the army clearly would not want liabilities of this kind, and both Hafiz Saeed and Pervez Musharraf, to a great extent, are liabilities to be foisted on them. The army has certain interests with regard to the Lashkar-e-Taiba, and they will certainly try to mainstream the Jamaat-ud-Dawa while keeping the militant and the extremist elements within the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jamaat-ud-Dawa ready to be used as instruments of state policy as they have been in the past. That is their larger game plan, not so much what happens to Hafiz Saeed or what happens to Pervez Musharraf.
Right, we'll wait and see.
Their ultimate aim is really to play the role of a kingmaker.
Okay.
Between the different established political parties.
All right, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm out of time here. Taha Siddiqui, T.C. Raghavan, Ahmed Shaheen and Michael Kugelman. We don't know if Pervez Musharraf is going to return to Pakistan and when.